Good afternoon. I hereby call this agenda review meeting of the NISD Board of Trustees to order. Let the record show that a quorum is present, and notice this meeting was legally posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meeting Act. Board Member James Evans unable to attend at this time. I'd like to recommend everyone that all items on the agenda today are for discussion only. No action will be taken at this meeting. So please join us in turning off your cell phones to a silent mode. Board, our first item, we will first discuss items from the consent agenda. Are there any questions or comments, items from the consent agenda, Board?
Are we just starting with the first one there, Mr. President, and working our way down?
Yes, we'll go down to Mrs. Barbara in just a minute. She'll be next. Ms. Barbara, we're going to turn it over to you, if you will, with business office reports.
Good afternoon, President Neal, board members, Interim Superintendent Fraley. I want to start off with first explaining that in the business office we had a perfect storm with quick turnaround and year end and some problems with our bank reconciliation. So you have some revisions of some documents that you have not had a chance to look at. I'll try to explain what's going on there. But first I would like to start with the budget amendments. So our first budget amendment is we received donations for convocation, and that is just the budget amendment to reflect the revenue and then the expense associated with that donation. Item B, we received a grant from the Charles and Lois Marie Bright Foundation. The police department received this grant, and it is to pay for police body cameras. So this reflects the revenue and then the associated expense. And item C is beginning to pull funds out of fund balance for projects that were not finished in 18-19 that continue on to 19-20. So these are partially finished projects, construction projects. This happens every year because of our June 30th year end, and projects obviously aren't finished in the middle of summer.
Ms. Barbara, before you go further, may I go back to B and just ask a quick question?
Okay.
On the Charles Bright Foundation, we certainly appreciate the contribution, and what a great thing for us, for the Bright Foundation to do for us. My question is, will it be enough to cover all of the officers for body cameras?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all to cover. Thank you.
And regarding that, I just wondered, when they get a grant like that, do you have to specifically do what they ask you to do with that money? Like, I mean, for example, if they have money left over from the camp to buy the cameras, can they use it any other way that they deem necessary?
I have not seen the details of this grant. The grant seemed to be pretty generic, but
actually, we provided them with an invoice.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And they make a grant to that correct amount.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool.
So there's
Okay.
no excess.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Ms. Barbara.
any other questions on budget amendments?
I have a kind of a follow-up question on the body cam. I'm very excited. Thank you for taking the effort to write the grant and to get that funding, and extremely appreciative, as President Neal said, to the foundation for funding that. Do we need to look at policies in regard to operational implementation of that?
Mr. President, if I could, we'll certainly need to have some conversations about the expectations of utilization for these. I think it'd be very wise that we have some if not policy, at least some administrative guidelines that the board becomes very familiar with once we get these cameras in place before we activate them. So Chief, now we'll talk more.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fraley. Any other items, board, on the budget amendments? Any other questions or comments? Ms. Barber, we continue.
All right. Next is the combined budget amendments report, just showing you the effects of those budget amendments. And there are two, this is one of those reports where you have the original that you had time to look at, and then the revised. The difference is we have teachers and teachers and paraprofessionals that are paid for prior year all the way through the end of August. Those expenses were incurred in prior year. Accounting rules require that you move them to prior year.
I see.
So that's why on the revised report, you see a bunch of negative amounts, because I've moved July and August into prior year. So the first report was before I did those accruals. The second was after the accruals for prior year. Does that make sense, what I just said?
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Okay.
Donations under 25?
We had several donations under 2,500. You have the list there. Most of them are for convocation. And then one was for athletics, a donation of $800 for a banner. And a banner.
Good job to the staff. They obviously pounded the street getting items together for convocation, and I know our teachers will thoroughly enjoy that tomorrow, so great job.
If I could ask one, again, thank the community for their support of what we're
Yes.
trying to do and support for our staff. Really appreciate that. And thank the team for pounding the pavement.
Thank you.
And then the investment report is just your normal report. We had one certificate of deposit expire, I guess is the right term, and then we just turned around and reinvested it. And then if you have any other questions on any other items, I'll take those.
Did I miss the page in here with salary adjustments? When I went through it yesterday, I didn't see it, but it's
No,
possible that I
okay,
missed
that
it.
is one of the new reports loaded this morning that you haven't seen yet.
Okay.
And it is.
So it'll be in the next one.
Well, you have it, but you
Okay.
haven't had a chance to review it. It was
Okay.
added this morning.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Barber.
I do have one more question.
Yes, Ms. Winslow.
On page 60, I see that we did make a payment to Doug Plow, but is that for a prior year? For last year?
Let me,
It should have been for services already rendered on the
Okay.
previous
yes,
contract.
yes, it would be. That is correct.
Do you know if we have any more that are kind of in the pipeline already, payments due to him?
Do you know of any?
Not aware, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Barber. Purchases over 25,000.
Yes.
Mr. Fraley, on the first one, professional service contracts, would you like to start us out before Dr. Hill begin?
I'm trying to get caught up with where I am since I was I just arrived back in town just a few minutes ago. So let me get Dr. Hill go for it.
Sure,
all right?
absolutely.
Okay, Dr. Hill?
So we have three different contracts. The first one is Region 7 Text Resource System. That's our portal for all of our curriculum. And so it is one that we've been utilizing for a couple of years now. The second one is the Academic Content Cooperative. This allows our teachers and staff to go to any of the 4 core content area professional development services. It can either be face-to-face, they go to the ESC. ESC staff will come here, and some of it is also online training. And then C is Hinesley and Associates. We've been utilizing her services for about 3 years, and so she works with federal programs in our Every Student Succeeds Act application, and some of our compliance documents.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hill. So these are resources that the district has used over the years.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And 2 of them are with Region 7, and then the last one is a private entity.
I have an easy, hard question.
Not sure, okay, let's try it.
Okay, some of the new printers, you can track who is using this and who's using that, but do we ever track who's actually using this content? Is there a way that's, okay, so that's just for your use, we don't need to know, but just, you can keep up with it, okay, great, super, we're as good as the copier machines.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Barber, we're back to you with Shaw's.
This is our yearly contract for our SHARs and MAC reimbursements. This service is, a company provides this service, getting us reimbursements for services that teachers and paraprofessionals provide to our special needs students.
Yes.
They turn in our reports, and we receive about, it ranges from around $500,000 a year, and their fee is 8%.
Thank you. Board, any comments or questions? The next item is a CWDG, purchase of $25,000, Michael Middle School. Come on up, Mr. Mulligan, and share with us on the Chromebook. Thank you, sir.
He's gotten ambitious.
No, I don't know. I don't know if there's really much more other than the summary. Summary is that currently I have 7 Chromebook carts on campus, and this year I had 2 additional teachers, so I had to take 2 of my computer labs and change those into classrooms. And at the same time, then I wanted to make sure that I had enough Chromebook carts, so I have like to get 3 more Chromebook carts that are they're really classroom sets, they mobile, and just want to make sure I had those for the teachers and the students.
Did you say they were mobile or they're not mobile?
They are mobile.
They are mobile.
Ms. Mulligan, for board members, maturity, will you talk about Chromebook carts a little bit?
Yeah, I sure will. So basically what you see right here that Dr. Hill has is a Chromebook, a smaller version of a laptop. But instead of anything being stored on the device itself, it's stored to the cloud, and students then can get their materials. It's stored with Google Chrome or Google, and they can get their materials and anything like that. They're smaller, they're less expensive, and the students work better on them, I think, as far as academics, than iPads.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms.
Yeah.
Mulligan. Great job.
How old are your other 7 carts? Are they all the same age, or they're different
No,
ages?
the other 2 carts are, the oldest set of carts are 4 years, and then we bought 3 last year, so they're a year old.
Okay, so we're layering.
Mhm.
Okay, super.
Board, any further questions or
Well,
comments?
I guess for Ms. Lisa, the 25,680 is coming out of funds that are available for student education. Does that deplete, does that get replaced, that money get replaced, or it doesn't get replaced in the budget? I guess what I'm asking is the money that we're gonna use to buy this, that money will be gone. We won't get money back on that. I'm assuming it's for funds serving all students. Does that get replaced?
This is coming out of my local.
Your local, okay.
Yeah, this is
So
coming
you're
out of my
spending the money.
campus money.
You're spending the money.
My money. McMichael's money.
It's a good spend, good spend.
Thank you, Ms. Mulligan. Appreciate it.
Well, I have one more question. So, in your opinion, we should be looking at Chromebooks because their effectiveness over iPads, in your experience?
For
For
my
in the future, when
campus,
other people want to come to us and they want iPads or Chromebooks, you're favoring Chromebooks.
for my teachers, that is what my teachers prefer. And that is what my teachers end up enjoying working with the kids. Now, my math teachers, because of what they like to do, they end up still liking using iPads.
Okay.
So it is a teacher preference. So it's not,
Okay.
there's not one that's better than the other.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, it's whatever the teachers feel that they are most
Good.
beneficial for their particular kids and their classes.
Okay, thank you for your input.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mully. Thank you. The next item, board, is first reading on tax update 113, affecting local policy. So, Mr. Martin, if you would.
Thank you, President Neal, members of the board, Interim Superintendent Fraley. Administration comes asking the board for their approval of Update 113. Administration has changed policy F&F back to its, we've restored it back to its original form. And as we also have a further revision in policy CI to align with current practices. I'll be happy to entertain any questions you may have.
I was able to follow it quite succinctly this time, so thank you. There was no competing, contradicting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Board, any other questions? We're going to stay with Mr. Martin, and the next item, sir, is on the prevailing wage rate determination.
Yes, sir. With our bonds passed and moving on projects under Executive Order 13658, an hourly minimum wage of $10.60 for the calendar year 2019 applies for all contracts subject to the Davis-Bacon Act. We are recommending our local wage rates as determined by the Department of Labor, that the board approve those for the upcoming projects.
Again, this is just required under federal requirement. And once you pass a bond, that your projects do comply with the Davis-Bacon Act. Since we haven't had a bond pass here in a while, we haven't looked at this in a while.
Now, when you say the minimum wage for contract, are you talking about the specific people that are gonna be working on our projects? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, sir. The
Okay.
contractors and their subcontractor employees,
Okay.
each, and you have a list of some particular positions in there, but the minimum wage is going to be $10.60.
And Mr. Martin, if I'm correct, you know, that's a minimum wage.
Yes, sir.
If that contract, that employee has skills and beyond that,
Then they can be paid according to the scale or
Yes,
the
sir.
schedule.
thank you. Board, any other comments or questions? The next one's teaching constitution, required by federal law, condition receipt of federal funding. Dr. Hill.
Thank you, President Neal, Interim Superintendent Fraley, and members of the board. This is an item that we bring to you annually, and so the state of Texas has designated September the 17th as Constitution Day, and that day happens to fall on a Tuesday for us this year. So basically, you're just approving that we will teach the Constitution during that week.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Hill.
Thank you.
Board, any comments or questions? Thank you. The next item is our T-test appraisals and calendar for the 2019-2020 school year. Mr. Whitaker, thank you for joining us and bringing us up to date. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, President Neal, board members, Interim Superintendent Fraley. This is an item that we bring annually, is T-test appraiser, list of appraisers, and the calendar for the 1920 school year. In accordance with Texas Administrative Code, the school districts must have an appraisal calendar in place, and all appraisers for NISD will be certified according to Texas Administrative Code and the State Board of Education. On page 403, you will start to find a list of appraisers. The personnel listed below have met all the mandated requirements and being recommended for approval as appraisers for the 1920 school year.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. Are there any questions or comments?
We want to thank all the teachers that, and administrators and all the people that do this appraisal. I see at least 2 right here, so they can hear me now. But we appreciate what you're doing to have this go on and help teachers. That's what we want to do. So thank you all.
Thank you, sir. And then on page 405, you will also see the list of the 1920 school year appraisal calendar. Again, this is an item that we bring annually, and it kind of follows the same list of calendars that we've done in the past. And again, it correlates with the district calendar that we have in place.
Good. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, Ms. Woodard. Thank you for your work and your staff. Thank you. For the next item, 8, annual review investment policy, including second reading revised policy. Ms. Barber, we're back with you on that particular item.
This is our annual review of the investment policy, and since we made a change to policy, this is your second reading.
Thank you. For any comments or questions, second reading? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Barber. Next item, I hazardous bus routes for the 2019-2020 school year. Mr. Lumpkin is coming, but as he comes, let me ask Mr. Fraley to just talk a little bit about hazardous bus routes. What does that mean when we have those routes like that?
Well, Brother Lampkin, I don't want to talk over him because he's an expert on this. But we are required to designate certain locations or certain routes that may be outside of our normal pickup zone, so to speak.
Yes, sir.
And that we would include those this fall. We can get reimbursement for that pickup as well. Is that about right, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Good afternoon, President Neal, board members, and Interim Superintendent Fraley. This is just to, about the, I don't know why I get nervous when I get here, that the information that we have to have for hazardous bus routes each year. It's a 10% allotment of regular transportation allotment used for transportation for students within the 2-mile radius. Also, hazardous areas are deemed by expressways they have to cross, overpasses, bridges, controlled, uncontrolled major traffic arteries, anything like that. And if you look on, I'm not sure what pages in your board book, we have a list of all the streets that it occurs to, and we have them set up.
Page 447, board members.
447?
447.
Okay. And like I said, this is something we have to do, well, that we've been doing every year to make you aware that all these are our hazardous streets areas. Any questions?
When they say hazardous, are they talking about because of the business that might be there? Are they talking about the size of the street? Are they talking about?
What it is, both, but the main thing, what it concerns is students having to cross, like major highways, major overpasses, which we don't have any expressways or anything like that. Pretty much what ours is a lot of our streets in our neighborhoods, because of the speed, they don't have sidewalks to walk on, all those kind of things. And the sidewalks is a big issue because that's one of the main things that determines your hazardous areas.
Okay. Yes.
Again, this allows for our collective reimbursement.
Yes.
Pickup.
Board, any other questions or comments from Mr. Lumpkin? Sir, we thank you. Thank you for all you all do. And I know you're getting ready to pick up our students on the 26th. And so thank you for another great year.
I have one question. Since you're here, if there was one route, if there was a sidewalk and it could be safer for the kids, is there one route or 2 routes you say, these are the routes? SFA and the city council are writing grants for sidewalks. And if we have a route, we say, this one is the most dangerous for our students, can you consider it? Maybe we can work together on that. So if you can't think of one now, you could come back and just let us know later.
I'll let Mr. Lampkin get with me back on that at a later date.
Yes, let me get back on that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Freddie, on J, consideration endorsement attachment board directors, I think this is an annual thing, but what is it? turn it over to you, sir.
Yes, sir. This is where you have the option of either nominating someone from this board or supporting the request from Longview ISD that we endorse, that you endorse, Ted Beard, who currently serves as a TASB board director, been there for a while, and many of you know Mr. Beard.
Yes.
Very, very well. I've known him for a number of years as well, and so if you have someone you want to put up against him, that he's someone that you know, and you may want to consider putting your endorsement behind him, but that is totally your discretion. It's just a request from Longview ISD, and we discussed this previously, and there was no interest in nominating anyone to oppose him in this board.
He's a veteran board member, and with a lot of years, and of course, he takes a lead role, and we appreciate his work.
He's also second vice president of TASB.
Correct. Certainly in the leadership and very responsive from what I've observed over the years.
Thank you, sir. Board, we will now proceed with items from discussion and action portion of the agenda. First one, consideration adoption of tax rate for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. Ms. Barbara, do you want to begin for us?
Every year, the district has to adopt the tax rate. This year is a little different because with the legislation, they provided tax relief to our property owners, and all school districts were required to lower the tax rate. So we are lowering ours. The M&O tax rate was 1.17, and now it is 1.06835. So that is a pretty large reduction. One thing I want to bring to your attention is when we adopted the budget, the tax rate was brought to you at 1.0684. That was a rounding from 385, which TEA recommended at the time, but now they're saying, no, you need to designate that it's 1.06385. It is very minimal change in our revenue, less than $1,000. So there's no worry there.
Is that less than $1,000 negative or positive?
Negative, yes.
Lose a little bit.
Right. So at the board meeting on Thursday, you will be adopting this new rate.
It's also, that's the M&O tax rate. You also have the INS.
Right,
which
the INS did not change. It's remained at 0.1625.
Previously, you agreed to buy down the bond impact on the rate, so there won't be an increase in the tax rate due to the passage of the bond for this upcoming 2019-2020 school year.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Barbara Guinea, thank you. Board, any questions or comments? Are there any objections, board, to moving this item to the consent agenda item for the board meeting Thursday evening?
What's that?
Are there any objections to moving it to the consent item?
The tax rate?
Yes.
Yeah, that's not.
Okay.
No problem.
We'll move it to consent item. Thank you. B, consideration of transportation renovation plan and bid notice. And as Mr. Ruru is coming, Mr. Fraley may want to start us out and
Yes,
talk
sir.
about.
Thank you, Mr. President Neal. We're very excited about this. I know Mr. Lampkin is as well. They've been working very hard to develop this plan, and they're ready to move forward and get some bids out there and start moving dirt. Brother LaRue?
Thank you.
Good afternoon, President Neal, board members, interim superintendent, Mr. Fraley. You have pages 422, 423, really starts on 424, gives you an outlay of the kind of the satellite view of the property. But the building itself, the real interest is on page 425, and that lays out very well what's the changes that are being made. Are there questions I can answer? Or that Army could answer?
Stacy, are you happy with it?
He just wants to be twice the size, but we ran out of space.
How many buses fit in this place?
The new building will hold 6 buses.
No, that we can park in the fenced place. Is it going to be the same size as it was?
Yeah, same size as it was.
Okay, so we're not changing the size. We're just
Perimeter is the
rearranging.
same size.
Are we losing bus spaces by the remodel?
No. No,
Okay.
the real addition and changes are to the building.
To the building.
Okay.
But filling in the holes and putting the blacktop on that parking lot, so.
Yes, we'll probably pave the lot.
Okay.
And everything that was in the bond is what's going to happen, you know, including the fueling station and the bus wash station and all those kinds of things. And there will be an expansion of the actual fenced-in area because of adding that additional bay. But all those things were part of the bond design that we shared with you earlier.
That's what concerns me, because I knew things were getting bigger.
Right.
And so we'll be okay in the future with our space.
We better be.
Board, any other comments or questions for Mr. LaRue?
Just sad that once this is approved, or should be approved on Thursday, they'll go out to bid and get busy.
Yes.
Do we have an estimated date when we'd like to see that completed, or?
Well, we'd like to get the bids in, to decide on early October.
October 3rd is when we expect to take
Oh,
bids in.
So we'll bring it back to you in the October meeting
Okay, sir.
for board approval on the final number.
Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate your work and looking forward to that transportation. Board, are there any objections to moving this item to the consent agenda?
No.
Thank you, Board. We'll move to consent agenda. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. LaRue. Thank you, Artie. Thank you all. Item C is consideration of the 2019-2020 Student Code of Conduct. Dr. Hill, you want to start with us?
Good afternoon. Yes, sir, President Neal, Interim Superintendent Friendly, and members of the board. You have the proposed 2019-20 NISD Student Code of Conduct in the front part, and then the second part is just the post-legislative recommendations from TASB that I went ahead and included for you guys to see if you wanted to cross-reference it. So I'll entertain any questions that you might have.
Yes, ma'am, I may ask. On page 4, Campus Behavior Coordinator, is this assigned for each campus, correct?
We do have a behavior coordinator for each campus, yes, sir.
Okay. In the past, if the students needed to be sent to the office, they would send them to a grade level principal. Is this still going on as the same?
When we do have grade level applicable principals or assistant principals, yes, sir, they go to see that grade level.
Okay, therefore, what is the primary responsibility of
Behavior
behavior
coordinator.
coordinator?
Oh, gosh, I will have to look it up. I don't know right off the top of my head, but I will.
It's simply say primary responsibility for maintaining students' discipline. I mean, another word, responsibility, I guess, as a teacher, I tell behave as establishing kids behave, and what is more detail?
Actually, student behavior is everyone's responsibility. It's everyone's responsibility.
Yes, sir.
And we have an administrative position that I guess is required that we have to designate someone for that position, but really it's everyone's responsibility. If you get to the habit of just, if a child misbehaves and you send them out somewhere else, you must work on the relationship everywhere. And there are some cases where you really have to have some intervention, and that's what this person would do, but you desire to have healthy relationships in the classroom so you have less need for this type of thing, but it's required to have someone designated as such, hoping that we don't have to need it as much as we have in the past years. That's optimistic, not realistic. But it's really everyone's responsibility. So we don't have a person there and something happens, they're the only ones responsible for trying to help make things better. We want everyone to be engaged with that.
Okay. The next question I have is, there are some students underage during the weekends or during the holidays or after school may they get in trouble, and their name is not published. However, most friends and people know exactly what happened, and they are in. If they were at school, there would be a violation of a school policy. How would they be handled?
I think it's probably.
Typically, if it's outside of school, and we work with our city, I know Chief in the city, they work very well together, that some things would be under civil or penal code, and we don't really have any authority over that if it happens outside.
In other words, their participation in extracurricular activity would be a concern. We have to wait until the court make a decision.
If it's a school-sponsored activity, we do have jurisdiction.
Okay. If it
But-
was
and if
even
it's not-
after school, let's say theft.
After school, if it's not a school-sponsored activity, we don't have any jurisdiction unless it's on school property.
I understand clearly, but what I'm saying is, we know some students got arrested, for example, with drug over the weekend. All friends knows, the word travels, and we know, and following day, comes to school, wants to participate in activities. So it's if we are concerned about the image of the program is already damaged, are we able to allow them to play, participate?
Typically,
Or-
extracurricular activities have additional authority beyond this code of conduct. You're being asked to approve the official code of conduct overall.
Yes, I wrote
Right.
a student code of conduct, specific, said in or outside of school, they get arrested, they have to wait. If it's, as I understood in the past, if they were arrested by law enforcement and they processed, if they quit it, obviously they can't participate. If they get, say, put on probation, they have to wait until the probation is finalized, then they're released. I don't know, I'm not sure if there's still the same policies applied or not, or how it works. I guess I'm concerned about the image of our campuses or our schools when somebody get arrested over the weekends, following week participates.
Well, we're concerned too, but we have to abide by the law. Where the law allows us to do, we will do. If it doesn't allow it, then we can't do it.
Okay, do we have any idea
We
what the law
will
prescribes?
look at them case by case. I can't just speak from hypothetical right now. As it comes up, we deal with it.
When I read through this, it said we have jurisdiction up to 300 feet from our campus. And since we were talking about that park across the street, that would give us jurisdiction over there. Because that's less than 300 feet. Is that right?
It's 300 feet just before you get to the entrance of
Oh, so it's not within 300 feet? Okay, so we don't. Okay. I was just looking at a way to, okay. Move the fence.
Well, and if I could add, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
This is an area that is of great and grave concern to me, as I have been back here for a little over a year now, and I'm seeing a lot of things throughout the community that we're going to have to all work together. I don't think anyone up here wants to have our children in trouble. No one condones misbehavior, and we have a balancing act of what we have authority over, what we don't have authority over, and what we like, what we don't like. But we've got to all work together to help improve the environment our kids are being raised in, and the role we play when we have them with us. So we have a lot of work to do, and we've got to all be working together as a board, as staff, as parents, families, and the community as a whole. And that's what I hope to have a conversation about throughout this upcoming school year, because we have some major opportunities to make things better in terms of living conditions for our kids.
Thank you, Mr. Freddie. Ms. Fitch, you about to?
Yeah, when I was reviewing the code of conduct yesterday, and thank you for including the TASB recommended template. I did find that interesting. I was having trouble, though, deciphering what was new, what had been changed in our code of conduct compared to last year.
I did not go through and make those highlights.
Okay.
I laid them side by side. I can go back and attempt to try to do that.
Yeah.
The wording that you'll see, that's why I included the notes, is because you'll see specific strike-throughs in blue in the TASB notes, and of course, the things that are added are in red.
Right.
And so
I
that's
could
why.
see that, and in some of it, I kind of did the comparison back and forth of, this is what TASB recommending, and how does it compare to what we're doing? But it still didn't really kind of tell me what changes are we making from last school year to this school year. And I for one, would appreciate kind of being able to decipher that and see those changes.
Yeah, I agree. We need to pull that out and just make bullet what has changed.
Yes.
And reference it. Yes.
Just like a summary of updates and updates.
And Mrs. Hill,
Very fair, very fair.
it may take a little while to do that. We're not expecting it Thursday evening on the board. It takes a while to get through comparing that, and because you'll need to call a couple of people. This is your first experience with student code of conduct. so it's gonna
Much.
take you a while. It's pretty lengthy. And with legislatures
Takes a
this
lot
year,
of
there's a
time.
lot of, anytime you have a legislative session, they really attack that student code of conduct, affect a lot of policies. So, I'm just saying Thursday evening, board, if, you know, if we can give her some time. She's more not gonna have it, you're trying to get ready for school to get started.
Thank you, sir.
Well, and that kind of brought up another interesting question in my head as I was reading over it over the weekend was, you know, do we, I know on so many of our other policies, we take TASB's policy. And I've never seen TASB's recommended policy on the student code of conduct before, so this is the first time they've got a recommended student code of conduct. Interesting. So the next question is, I guess we've never done that before. How does that compare to what we've done? And can we look at just adopting the student code of conduct that TASB's recommending versus creating this new document every year? Those are some of the questions that were swirling around in my mind as I was reviewing the material.
Sure.
What I want to ask us to do is review the process that we use to develop the recommendation to the board, and perhaps the board will want to weigh in during the developmental phase of it. Again, this is Dr. Hill's first time with us, and we've had some changes in what folks are doing and not doing, and I think that you need to have a little more of an opportunity to participate reflectively than we provided you this time around. So we need to work on that. Timeline-wise, when must this be adopted? Is it before school starts? Because this, like everything, becomes a living document, and it needs to become modified as we go along. I think it's going to require a lot more time than we have between now and the beginning of the school year. If I were in your seat for a comfort level, I need to have more conversation about it. So we have a timeline about when this must be adopted?
Should be before school starts.
Okay, so,
can-
okay.
If I'm not,
Before the 26th.
if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken, it should be handed to students and also be posted as well.
Right.
To get it translated.
That is
Probably
correct.
English and Spanish, I would assume.
Yeah.
Does TASB provide a Spanish version?
I believe they do, but please.
Okay.
We've had in the past a Spanish version out there on the website, and also, you know, where
I know
parents
it
can fully.
takes some time to get it translated.
Yes,
If you do make
absolutely. Yeah.
any changes off of what is the typical plan that TASB's sharing with you, so.
There is an editable Spanish version. Yes, ma'am.
At the beginning, I think it says that students have or parents have the option of getting a hard copy or the internet. But I just think that it'd be good for parents to get a hard copy, even though they can get it on the internet. And if there was some way, and I'm thinking in terms of, because I remember when I worked for the district before, there was parents said, well, I never saw the handbook or the student handbook, or I was never explained it or anything like that. And if there's a question about something that comes up, then at least we can say they were given that on the internet and also a hard copy. And I know it makes a little bit of expense, but I think that's a good thing to do. That would be what I would think.
And adding to Mr. Matoya, I think, you know, it's available on the website, but at the same time, if a parent requested it to be a hard copy, I think the principals made it available for them if they requested it. Mr. Mullins, am I correct?
What I'm looking at right now is how do we get the content approved by the board?
Yes, sir.
And so today's the 12th.
Yes.
Don't know what we'll have by Thursday. We have convocation tomorrow. We have CBRIC and other things happening that we're preparing for this week. So let me get with staff and see what we can create out of this. Again, we will not do certain things to get this done.
Yes.
And so, but this is important.
So my question would be though, if we went on Thursday and we approved it as is, do we have an option to go back at any time and change it?
Always.
Okay.
Yes, always. It's my understanding
Yes.
that the board has that discretion.
And I know the staff has too. So board, I'm gonna ask the question, are there any objections to moving this item to the consent agenda so we can get it ready for school to start?
I would
I'd
not,
recommend-
I would prefer to keep it on action.
Okay.
Same here.
You know,
And
I'm
because
just
I
gonna
would
be.
like to have the discussion of
It's
that.
gonna, it's gonna be very difficult for me. I'm gonna be real candid and transparent. It's gonna be real difficult for me to cast a vote on this without having a little bit more comparative information to understand what changes we are making.
So we may not have it ready by Thursday, and if not, then we'll have a special meeting.
Okay. That'd be fine.
That would be fine.
Thank you.
Mr. Fred, is this common that extracurricular activities guideline or bylaws should be reviewed as well? Not to make a decision on it one way or the other, but
Board has a lot of discretion when it's not restricted by law. I don't know what the practice here has been in terms of, and how much you want to get into the cheerleading guidelines or the soccer team guidelines, the football team guidelines. Those folks over those programs have sometimes certain needs they need to have, and they work with their principal to do that. And so I don't know if we want to have the board, again, to approve those types of things. But again, that's your
not to
discretion.
approve, just to review it, just
If-
have
if-
some idea.
If you're reviewing it, you're approving it, and you're accountable for it.
Just to review.
Board, any more questions or comments on student code of conduct? Thank you, Board. The Board will now conduct an executive closed session to discuss the items posted on our agenda pursuant to the following provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Act as allowed by Texas Government Code Section 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.129. No voting will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussions in closed session will take place after the board reconvenes in open session. It is now 12:46. Thank you. At 1:11, the board is now reconvening in open session at 1:11. Board, are there any requests for future agenda items? Are there any requests?
Okay. So it doesn't necessarily have to be for this one, but I know when we were at our TASB conference, they mentioned several things that we should be at least just hearing a report on.
Yes.
One of them was student discipline, and another one that I've kind of wanted to see over time is turnover with not just teachers, but faculty, but the staff and things of that nature. So I didn't know if we could start kind of seeing something on that going forward.
If I could add,
Yes, sir.
we had talked about having a retreat so that we can get away from the random
Yes.
request and really as a retreat with the board and leadership team, talk about those types of things and develop a schedule
Okay.
so that, because nothing you've asked for is anything out of the ordinary.
Okay.
I think it's good stuff, but I think we want to try to schedule a get-together so that we don't just have the,
Yes.
I kind of forgot
Public
about the
council.
retreat, that's fine.
but,
I just was.
I mean, that's the intent. Now, we may not have the retreat. I don't know what's going to happen, but that was our thinking, really trying to look at things comprehensively. There's a lot more stuff I think you all should be talking about than what we have been.
Okay.
And I think that would be something to certainly add.
Okay.
I think those are two great topics to discuss at the retreat. And I think we even decided on the approximate date. And we have a
I have a
calendar.
date, I saw a
And
date on
so-
it come through.
And board, there may be more items like that you want to bring to the attention.
Okay.
And we've asked Ms. Fraley to bring his staff so we can all just sit down and talk and.
Trying to build a team.
Yeah,
That's
build a team.
perfect.
Boy, one other comment. On invocation for Thursday night, I've asked Pastor Irvin to do the invocation. He said yes, after several days ago. And what about the pledges? Someone want to volunteer to do the pledges for us?
I can.
Okay, Mr. Fasheed, Nearmon, and Pastor Irvin. Thank you, sir. Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second? All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
So in the morning.